This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X-Cast. As ever, the truth is in here. I am your host today, Carl Sweeney, and welcome back to I Want to Believe Minute. We are still going through the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time, and yeah, we are determined to not miss any minutes out, and that means we are currently at minute 75, so 74 minutes, 0 seconds. Mulder is driving into town as this minute begins. We're going all the way through today to 74:59. As a plough truck pulls up outside the store. And joining me once again is Cortlan Waters Bartley. Thanks, Cortlan, for joining me again.
Happy to be here.
And yeah, before we start digging into this minute, we are going to remind you that you can follow the Xcast on social media, and we would love, if you are enjoying the show, we would love a quick rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or something like that. Just a quick one-liner would be ideal. And yeah, let's get into this one then, Cortlan. So... like I said, Mulder has been at the crime scene, and he's decided to drive into town. He pulls up at the gas station, and he sees this feed store, and he, has this interplay with the owner. I liked, the actor Stephen Miller, who plays the owner, actually, because it's just, I think he's quite good at playing like the slightly harried guy who'd be able to close up if just this annoying person would go away and leave him alone. Because it's like he says something about bad weather's coming in or something, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So
yes.
I just thought he was very believable in that. It's only a small role, but I thought he nailed it. Really.
Yeah. No, I agree. Actually, I am in my part-time job. I am the person who closes up shop. That's my role, and I know exactly how this man feels. Someone is coming in as you're trying to lock the door, and unfortunately for him, that someone is Mulder, who is sometimes kind of annoying. Anyway, and yeah, I get it. And also I guess someone calls him, maybe I think we're supposed to think it's his wife or his partner or someone calls him about picking maybe a kid up or something. He's just trying to go home. Yeah, I get it. It's relatable.
It is. Yeah. It's been a few years since I worked in retail, but I remember when I had a job like that and I had to lock up and, somebody comes in 2 minutes before closing time or something, it's, I
always try to be very polite and say, we close in just a few minutes. And they're like, I'll be quick. And then 15 minutes later, they're buying a postcard or something.
The thing is, when I'm a customer, if I was in that situation myself and I walked into a store that was 2 minutes from closing and I could see they were effectively closing right now, I would leave it till the next day, or I would...
Yeah.
I wouldn't linger,
No, and you can always tell who's going to do that. You're oh, that it's time to go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being that person.
Yeah. Well, as part of, this exchange, Mulder is asking about asapromazine, which is the animal tranquilizer that has been found in these limbs and heads and things that have been found in the ice. And Mulder asks if he sold it to... Yank Dakshin, who's the Callum Ferreri character. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the owner's preoccupied and he's got this phone call coming in, and I think he says something, doesn't he, about how if Mulder doesn't have a prescription, he can't sell it. Yeah.
Mulder plays it pretty cool, leading it, kind of leads him to the asapromazine. Can I buy some? No. Have you sold some to this guy? Yeah, and he kind of shows him the terrible mugshot. It's not even a mugshot. I think it's his ID picture or something like that. Really hard to see.
Yeah. And then this minute ends as Mulder sees a plough truck pull up outside the store, which is going to lead us into the drama in the next couple of minutes. So
ominous.
Yeah, it is ominous. This feed store then is called Nutter's Feed, which is an homage to the director David Nutter, who used to work on the X-Files series. What do you think about all the kind of little Easter eggs and things in the movie, like the cameos and some of the references, whether it's to other episodes or something? This is one of the things I've been surprised about, I'll say, with I Want to Believe Minute, which is I don't think I spotted a lot of these back in 2008 when I first saw the movie. I would have spotted some of them, and then I would have spotted some of them on later rewatches. For example, we're going to get a Chris Carter cameo right at the end of our block of minutes, I think, and I don't think I saw that out of the corner of my eye when I first saw the movie, but I probably caught it later. But what I'm finding on this series is I'm finding like even more references to things that I'd ever realised were here. You know, sometimes you hear Chris Carter on a commentary track and he talks about somebody who, you know, a makeup artist who's standing in the back of the scene or something. And what do you make of all that, Cortlan? Do you think there's too much of this stuff? Do you think it's nice that all these little like nods and winks are in the movie?
I mean, I think it's hard to say that there's too much of it, because certainly like you, I did not catch most of them, maybe even any of them really, the first time that I watched this. So it's hard to say there are too many, because it's not overly obvious. I think actually the references we'll talk about in probably the next minute are the most obvious ones. And yeah, I think Nutter's feed store is exactly the right way to do it. Yeah. You know, like they don't really talk about it. I think he says the name, you know, when he answers the phone, the guy, but it's not something they're like talk about or really in your face. It's really in the background. You notice it. Maybe if you watch the movie many times, like we are doing currently.
Chris Carter did say there were more potential like Easter eggs in the movie, but didn't quite make it in. Like mailboxes with names like Morgan and Wong on them, or Gordon and Ganza, and with David Nutter there. And just quickly, like I say, he was a director back in the original run of the show. I'm just going to pull up a list of some of the episodes he may have directed, actually. And have you heard of him, Cortlan? Do you know much about him beyond the fact that he was an X-Files
Nope,
director?
I know I'm really bad, as we know from every episode that I've ever been on. I'm very bad at this game of people's names and knowing what they have done. I know his name, obviously, as related to the X-Files, and that's about it. And I guess Millennium, probably. Did he do other Chris Carter stuff? I don't know. Yeah,
Millennium, but then other series like Game of Thrones that he's worked on. And
sure.
What I know is that he had a reputation, may still have, as the pilot whisperer. In other words, if this man directs your pilot, there's a very good chance it's going to be picked up and, and go to series, because he had a really strong strike rate, like 15 pilots directed and 14 of them went to series or something like that.
That is a lot of pilots. Yeah, that's a lot of pilots.
And some of the X-Files episodes he did, they're all in the first 3 seasons, but some of them really, really good. So Ice, Beyond the Sea, like I said, Beyond the Sea, Lazarus, Shapes, Tombs, and Roland in season 1. So of those, I think Shapes stands out as not a great episode.
Right.
But you got Tombs, Beyond the Sea, Ice. That's very strong, isn't it?
But they all have, I mean, one thing Shapes does have is atmosphere, for sure.
Yeah.
So has that in common.
Yeah, I think you could say a lot of the issues with it are on the level of the screenplay, perhaps. Yeah. Season 2. So Little Green Men, the season opener. Blood, Free, Firewalker, and Irresistible.
Oh, love it. One of my faves.
Yeah. 3rd season then, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, Too Shy, Nisei, and Revelations.
Okay, so a good one. Yeah, so good ones.
Some classics there, you'd have to say. You know, Beyond the Sea, Clyde Bruckman, Ice, fantastic stuff. What I did was I looked up an interview with David Nutter on the Directors Guild of America website. Now, this is from 10 years ago, but he has a really nice quote in there about the X-Files, and I wanted to ask if you kind of agree with what he says, or what you make of it anyway. So the question he was asked was, you've done all kinds of shows, but you've done a considerable amount in the fantasy sci-fi genre. Is that something you have a special feel for? And he says, I think a lot of that was just one project leading to another. What happened is that after I did the X-Files, people would come to me and they'd say, oh, let's go do something more wild and more crazy than the X-Files. And I would explain, that's not what the secret of the X-Files was. And this is the interesting bit I wanted to ask you about. So then he says, the secret of the X-Files was that you were creating a real-world situation with real people and real situations, and viewers could actually have an affinity for them. There was an accessibility. The frame of the television would, in a sense, dissipate, and you could actually lean into the show. once you began to care about what you were watching and believed what you were watching, then we'd throw the paranormal at them, or we'd throw something else at the audience that would affect them in an emotional way. So I find that really interesting because as someone myself who I've never been like, I know I have friends who are like really, passionate about sci-fi in general. And I've never quite been like that myself, but I love like the X-Files. And I'm wondering, does it relate to the kind of thing he's talking about there, the accessibility of it? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to describe it. Because I do think that, especially in the earlier seasons, so the ones he would have done all those episodes in, the idea was definitely to keep it very, like, grounded in reality. Certainly, like, in season 1, like, the paranormal thing in ice is something that we dug up out of a frozen glacier, It's not... it seems plausible. In fact, we know now this is a plausible thing that, happens. Whether it takes over your brain that way, who knows? But I think it makes sense to think about it that way. And it might explain why people find it so relatable for such a long period of time. Like, the technology isn't the point, right? Or the science-y, fiction-y part isn't the point. Because most of that is outdated now, but we don't care because the rest of it is so relatable,
Yeah, and do you think that relatability or like the grounded in reality quality that you're talking about, it can be about how the storyline is grounded in some way, but I just think the whole package, like the way they would cast these episodes in the early years, I can believe that some of these people, you might see somebody in a teaser sequence somewhere and they feel like a real person in a real situation. I think that's maybe what the kind of thing he means as well,
Yeah, I agree.
So I like that. And like I say, he done one of those people, lots of people who started out on the X-Files or, worked on the X-Files early in their career and then went on to do great things afterwards. So fair play to David Nutter. Just on what we were talking about on the kind of Easter eggs and things, I put a call out for opinions on this in our Facebook group the other day. Just interesting to see what people were saying. So I'll just quickly throw a few of these at you. So Dinara Tengri said that she hadn't watched the movie in years, but she loved the shot of Mulder and Scully looking at George W. Bush early in the movie. Now, I'm less of a fan of that, but I think I can see what she means because she says it's how it speaks volumes about how much times have changed. And I can get that that's what they're going for. I think I had a bit of a pedantic objection to it, which was that George W. Bush was already the president in season 7, So
right.
They would have seen portraits like that back in the day. But anyway, what do you make of the W moment?
Yeah, that is funny. When you do the math, that is funny. Because certainly, he would have already been the president.
Yeah.
So, I think it was probably more, a nod to the politics of the time than it would make sense for the characters to do in that scenario. Because, like, they live in that world where he's been the president for a while. And I'm sure the characters have opinions, but I think that was just I think that was just so that everyone watching the movie knows that they have opinions. Yeah,
I think that's what takes me out of it. And I think somebody replied to say about the music, they put the X-Files theme on the soundtrack at that moment, which I think it just kind of jars me a little bit. I did like her take on it. And then Liz Manning Jarmel said that she loved the Vanessa Morley cameo. So in the same scene that we were just talking about with the George W. Bush portrait, when she walks down the corridor. So this is the actress who once played Samantha Mulder. And I liked Liz's take on it when she says it helps to soothe some of the wounds that having a new and different Samantha enclosure caused. Boy, did they really botch that. Arguably the resolution of the primary quest of the entire series, and they thought just any old actress would fit the bill. Now, I know what she means, but I've always found closure like really moving, but I think even so, it would maybe be even more powerful if it had been Vanessa Morley reprising the role there, other than the actress that they drafted in for that. So I quite like her take on that cameo, even though I didn't... she talks about getting choked at watching it. I didn't quite have that response to it, but I do like what she's saying,
Yeah, I do. I mean, I appreciate what she's saying, and I appreciate that it seems like some of their goal for like all these Easter eggs is to sort of remind us of all of these people. Like, remember how many people did this and are part of this, and that's really nice. Like, I love that part of it for sure. I think that's the fun part of the Easter eggs.
Yeah, and somebody comments on the Chris Carter cameo. We're going to talk about that when we get there, I think, which is in a couple of minutes' time.
Sounds good.
Ronald Wilson mentioned the cameo by Sarah Jane Redmond, who appeared in the X-Files episode Schizogyny, and is also she's a recurring presence in Millennium as well. So, yeah, no, I do like the sense that they drafted in a lot of people. I imagine most of these people who were coming in were just coming in for a day or even a morning or an afternoon or something, but I do like the sense that there was a bit of a getting the gang back together thing going on with this movie, you know.
Yeah, that feels nice, especially because it could very well be like an out with a bang kind of situation at this point.
So I don't have much else on this minute, Cortlan. Frank Spotnitz had commented that the scenery is particularly beautiful, you know, as you see Mulder coming into town and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And he was concerned that the mountains wouldn't be believable as West Virginia, but thinks they got away with it. What do you think of that?
I found it believable as West Virginia. I mean, there are, you know, obviously there are small mountains there, but there are some pretty rugged areas. I bought it, especially with snow. I don't know. I think it looks right to me.
Yeah, it looked fine to me, but then I got absolutely no conception of American geography, so it would.
That's okay.
Was there anything else about this minute that caught your attention?
I got nothing.
Yeah, no worries. In that case, then, I think we'll wrap it up for today. We will be back to cover minute 76 very, very soon. But until then, listeners, always remember, trust no one.